All right. I hope everybody is having a fantastic Friday. And if you're not, better Fridays will come. Better days will come. They always do. What would a good day be without a bad day? Bland, tasteless. That's not what we want. So, I've decided to dedicate Fridays, the end of the week for some, the start for others, to a subscriber video. We're going to be doing game reviews, so send in your games. I'll make videos about them. We only got 2 games sent in because I didn't exactly market it the best, right? I just play chess. I don't market. So we got 2 games, but that's okay because over time I'm sure we'll get more and we'll review more. So they don't need to be games where you blundered. They could be, if you want them to be. They could be your best game, your worst game, a goofy game, a scary game, an interesting game. Whatever you want shown, I will make a video on. Today I'm also going to implement one of my games that I wanted to review in yesterday's video, but it was too long and I closed the tab on accident. It's a game where I played at 99 accuracy and beat an international master. I know I've been showing some of my wins. If you guys want some of my losses, I can show that too. I really have no ego in chess. I like to lose, I like to win, I like to learn, I like to teach. Because chess is amazing. So let's get into it. Subscriber, review, send in your games, post my email down below. I'll leave it in the link forever because, that's how it should work. So we got pawn to e4, pawn to c6, a Caro-Kann. As many of you guys know, it's my favorite opening in chess to face because it used to be my least favorite. Now it's my favorite. That's what you got to do. Pawn to d4, controlling the center. Pawn d5, knight to d2. The Tarrasch way of playing it. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't make a difference where you put your knight because they're going to take the pawn on e4. But on the off chance that they don't, I'd prefer my knight on d2 where I don't need to get pinned because I just don't like getting pinned. Do you like getting pinned? I like allowing c3 for flexibility, this pawn chain. Nice and easy. But this is those 9 out of 10 times because they do take. You take back with the knight. Are we going to get a boring Tartakow? Are we going to get the old school main line? We're going to get the old school main line. And since that is interesting, we're going to put our end of the week interesting shades on. All right? A guy lecturing you. I hope you guys don't view it as me lecturing you because that's not really my intention. But I feel like it's goofy wearing shades. Like, so dumb. I don't know how people act serious in shades. It's really crazy. But bishop to f5, forcing the knight to move. The knight goes to g3, gaining a tempo on the bishop. And we get bishop to g6. Do you know this line? It was very popular maybe like 10 years ago, and then everybody plays the Tartakower now. But h4 trying to trap the bishop, it would be an inaccuracy if black plays h5 because then you're going to plant a knight on e5 and this guy is going to be a target, a blockaded target for the rest of the game that you're going to build up on. So really what black should do is go h6. It's the flexible approach. We get knight to e2. All right, so we're out of boring territory. Usually people go knight f3 to defend the pawn. They go h5 to kick the bishop, bishop to d3 to trade, and then white's argument is black has moved his bishop like 4 times. And, it's a game. It's an equal game. I do love that line. But after looking at Tal's World Championship match, I switched to knight e2 and never looked back. It's a very fun line. It's an uncommon one. So the point is that you're going to end up kicking black's light squared bishop out with the knight. And white is happy because he does not need to extend this pawn to h5 where he just might not want it. Now, also the reason I like this is you don't go for a light squared bishop trade. You go bishop to f5, keeping it on the board. More pieces, more sparks, more fun. So now what should black do? Well, they actually only have one move. Their only move is knight to f6. But now the queen is cut off from the knight, so white is able to castle. Black goes bishop to d6 because, that's a good diagonal. And here, white sacks the knight for the pawn. You might be like, that's crazy. And it is. But Tal played it. Was Tal crazy? Yes, but he was good crazy. There's good crazy and bad crazy. Don't be the latter, be the former. And someone will always think you're the latter when you are the former, but that's just life. That's just perception point of view. But this bishop is a tank, right? I can pitch this all day. I would defend this line all day. The king gets paralyzed in the center of the board. The bishop is very nice. You get 2 pawns for the knight. It can't castle. People don't like when they can't castle. The best way black can play is like so, where Tal played bishop to g8. Computer recommends Bishop h3. I play both depending on the day, depending on the time, what I ate, if I'm lethargic or not. But this is not that game because my opponent decided to blunder. See, it's such a rare line that even an IM doesn't know the theory. He went bishop to d6. And I know this move. I know that it's losing. I've gotten this many times. Find the winning move here for white. It's quite interesting. The move is knight g to h5. Backwards guarding the knight, but more importantly, aiming at g7. Right? And black just can't be lazy. He can't just play g6 because then tactics come into play. Right? You're going to backwards take and you're going to fork them and win the queen. That's just one way it could go down. Another way is king to f8. This is what I get more often, defending the pawn on g7. But they can never castle again, and, that's pretty good for you. So you go queen to g4, gaining an attacker on g7. My stomach just rumbled, but I'm not even hungry. What's that all about? We get pawn to g6, and I still knew this theory because I've gotten it before. So we get knight takes e6, giving up a knight. I love this line because you just give up your pieces and look at their king. Fine by me. I'll take this all day. Now we get pawn takes, of course. Knight to f4. You don't want to lose both knights. You want to fork them. The best move here, they don't want to get forked, so they take the knight, at which point you take back. And in this position, the only move they have for relatively being not resignable is knight to f6, but it's very easy. You just take this pawn on h6. Wherever they move, you checkmate them. If they go king e8, you still take, and, look at this position. Any day of the week, I'll take that. But my opponent, I guess he wanted to be in Guess the ELO, even though this is not... I don't want it to be Guess the ELO because I actually want to, review these games. We get queen takes d4, a blunder, right? A blunder. Why? Have you been doing your chess.com tactics? If so, the move is bishop takes h6. My opponent resigned. 99 accuracy, 15 moves. On to the better games, the more important games, these subscriber games. So we got 2 games. This first one is by Roldant, subscriber. 2046 versus Trolls U, 2066. This is imported from Lead Chess. Time will play a factor, so I'll speak about that when time does play a factor. We got e4, e5, not my forte, but I do teach a lot of students the Italian. We got bishop to c5. If you're playing white in this position, if I was playing white in this position, Evans Gambit all day. For some reason, the Evans Gambit declined has been popularized recently, at least in tournaments for my students, and it's a very bad line. So has somebody made a video on the decline, or are they just scared to take a free pawn? We get pawn c3, the slower build. Well, actually the faster build, because it does play for d4, right? Instead of d3, c3, d4. I don't know much about this, but I know some stuff. We get pawn d6, pawn d4. And in this position, I'm used to seeing taking in the center and then sliding back. Sliding back, maybe it's just something I don't know. What I'd be cautious about is how are you going to deal with d e5? Are you comfortable with the incoming queen trade? Have you studied this? That would be my question to you. So instead, we get knight to g5. So this is the problem. They're playing it like a fried liver. They're playing it for f7, but they're just not developed. Right, you're 2000, you're too good to be attacking this early. This is not what you should be doing. So this is good for black. You develop and you defend. You might be like, that knight's on the side of the board. Maybe it could get taken. But think about it. The only way it could get taken is if white moves the knight. And if white moves the knight, they're not threatening anything. So don't see ghost, knight h6, very good. Then we get queen to f3. See, white is just throwing his opening advantage away, trying to go for checkmate. This is hope chess. These people, you're too good for this. You're never going to get, checkmate. This is what beginners go for, this checkmate on f7. So castle, you develop with a tempo. You have the pull in the position. And queen h5. Again, look, white is digging his own grave. He had a fine position, and then he's like, I want checkmate, I want checkmate, I want checkmate. And black's just like, okay, I'm going to develop and stop checkmate. Great. So we get bishop to g4, a beautiful move. Kicking, I don't care what the computer says. This is a beautiful move. The queen only has one move, and now the knight is pinned to the queen. We got ed4, great move again. Pawn f3, kicking out the bishop. Now, you can go knight e5 to attack this bishop and then go from there. But if not, you should go bishop to d7. I don't know why he didn't go bishop to d7. Maybe he was afraid of some scopes. But again, there's nothing. There's just no connection. He's not developed. He doesn't have enough pieces to attack you. So bishop to d7 consolidating would be very good. But okay, we get bishop to e6. I don't know if this was a little bit of hope chess, like hoping the knight would take and fork you. And it's pinned. But again, you had a disadvantageous trade. So we got queen e6, good move, stepping out of the pin, double attacking e6. And he's still threatening the fork, so you're going to lose a pawn. Okay, queen f6, fine. Knight takes, rook e8, good move. Knight jumps back to f4. Now we got pawn takes, a nice move. White should clearly take back with the knight and develop. For some reason, he takes back with the pawn. And see, this is the difference between hope chess and good chess. Knight b4 is not hope chess. It's using it's a good way of thinking, right? Because if pawn takes, you take the rook. That's like the hopeful manner, but you're also getting a lot of activity out of it, right? If this knight moves, that's a check. You're threatening a fork. And they actually cannot go knight a3 because you just take on c3 with the queen and fork them and win the game. Like that. Like so. So, see, there's a difference between the move queen f3, queen h5, knight g5 that white played, and knight b4. Knight b4 is like actually good. So we got king d1. No longer he can castle. We got rook to d8. Maybe an argument with rook d8 is it's better to strike right away, right? Rip open the king because rook d8 allows them to make a flexible move. D5 does not allow them to make a flexible move. It just rips everything open. And again, this pawn is pinned, so it cannot take the knight. So we got knight h5, okay, gaining a tempo, and only one move for black here for advantage. What would you play? He played queen e5, a blunder. Hard to see why, but he had to play queen g6. The point is on queen g6, if knight takes, king takes, two defenders, two attackers, big chillin'. But after queen e5, not so much. He did find the move, amazing. Knight takes g7. And the point is if you take back, they're going to take your knight back. So black's like, I don't care. I'm going to go d5. Best move, rip open the position. It looks like checkmate is incoming. We got knight takes rook, but there's a check, a discovered check. So very good not taking the knight. And bishop to d2. Now, what should black play here? Black should go knight f5, and it's actually quite an amazing position because say they take. I mean, you have all the activity in the world. They are pinned, and they can lose this game very quickly. For example, this is one way they can get checkmated. Two knights next to each other. Gorgeous. But instead, we get pawn to e3. At this point, he had like 25 seconds, so it's sensible to play such a move. White could have won on the spot by going queen g3 and just trading up material, right? Because it's check, so that's a forced trade. But instead, he took the knight, and black is winning yet again. He finds the brilliancy. Rook takes d2. We get knight takes d2. Unfortunately, he messes up with 10 seconds here, but you do have mate in 3. Can you find it? The move is pawn to e2. Point is, if the king goes here, that is a check and mate. If the king goes here, it's still a checkmate. I guess that's the longest drawn out one, so we could talk about it. Queen c1 check, king b1, queen c2 checkmate. Unfortunately, black decided to take the pawn and ended up losing the queen and resigning here. But he had like 10 seconds here. He had like 1. So this came down to time pressure. Unfortunate, but a very tricky, a very cool game. Now we're going to look over one played by Sacrifice Master, a fellow Serb. Unreal. And we are going to get a French defense. So we get a French defense, but then we get c5. Interesting. I don't see this all too often. I see d5 a lot. c5 not so much. But it's still a great move. It's just less common. So d5, it's interesting because it's an e4 opening that's going to play like a Benoni. What I mean by that is white is extended on the light squares, so any light squared fianchetto will not be the greatest. Vice versa, this dark squared bishop will be excellent, a beauty of a piece, and you get this. That's the point of this blockade in the center. Love these types of positions. So we got knight f6, knight c3, and we get knight bd7. Okay, I would be trying to fianchetto very quickly, but maybe he wants to guard d6 like this, but I'm not all too familiar with ideas like that. I'm a big bishop g7 guy. So see, again, knight b6. This move can be punished. It aims at the weak pawn, but you almost don't even want to win that pawn because you open up the light squares. So white should go a4, for example. His plan is to go a5, kicking the knight back. And again, you do not win the pawn because of bishop to b5 check, picking up the knight. So Knight b6, not a fan of. Again, I would go g6, bishop g7. But okay, we get castles, bishop e7, knight f4 makes some sense, and castles. A fair, pretty equal position. Bishop to e4 does not make really any sense to me. Black is happy to take the bishop and get the bishop pair. We get bishop f5, which is the human move. Funny enough, the computer wants g5, f5. It's like, I'm not getting checkmated. I'm just gaining space. To each their own. Bishop to f5, I like this move. We get pawn f3 guarding and pawn h6. Okay, maybe he wants to build up, create a luft for the bishop. Maybe the king, probably the bishop. We get knight e2, a backwards retreating move. That's like a double entendre. Something like that. Knight to g3, kicking the bishop. It slides to h7. You created a nice luft for it. We get the move pawn to c3. Okay, makes some sense. And pawn f5. Beautiful. Kicking the knight out, gaining some space. Bishop to g5. Not so much. I think you should keep the bishop here. I would argue this bishop is actually very bad, right? It doesn't have too many good squares to go to. Maybe a move like bishop h5, aiming in at everything. Just, you have the bishop pair. I think you should value that here, even though knights are my favorite pieces. This trade, I think, helps them. White declines the trade, but gains a tempo on the bishop with the knight. And it was black's intent to trade, so that makes sense. Now, queen f6. What should you do? What is the weakness? The thing you did get out of removing white's dark squared bishop is this e3 square. How do you get there? Well, you go knight c4. You're aiming at anything and everything, and this is a beautiful knight. So keep applying pressure, right? Queen f6 is a little passive. It doesn't really threaten anything. Yes, it develops, but it doesn't threaten anything. Again, knight c4, crushing. This is not a time. Oh, you do play knight c4. I thought king h8 was played. Sorry. Very good. Knight c4, amazing. So we get knight c4, move later. White could have stopped it with b3, but he didn't see the threat. We got rook to f2, guarding b2, getting out of the way of the fork. And here you really want to press on. You want to go knight e3, hop that guy over to g4, or expand on the queen side. Something of the sort like that. Improve the bishop. Instead, we get king h8. Not a time for prophylactics, right? They don't have a light squared bishop. This is a blockaded pawn. They don't have any way to punish your king. Maybe you were looking at like something like this in queen b3. Maybe you were looking at bishop g8 probably. Okay, so it makes some sense, but again, a misread in the position. But if you were thinking bishop to g8, that's actually pretty beautiful. Knight e3, bishop g8. I like that thinking. So we get pawn to b3, kicking the knight. The knight gets kicked into where it wanted to go, and then it improves itself to g4. Nice. We got rook to f3, saving itself. Rook e7, nice. Doubling up on the e-file, trading on your own terms because you're controlling the file. And taking with the queen is actually very good. That queen looks like a bulldozer. Knight f2, a mistake. How could black win the game? Queen e1, keep applying pressure. The best move. Queen e1 check, mind you. We got queen takes, rook takes. Knight f1, find the winning tactic. Unfortunately, it was missed, but it's very good. The winning tactic is rook takes f1, sacrificing the rook, winning a pawn, but at the end of the day, a pawn is all you need. Not to mention it's a bishop versus knight. Enter up a pawn, just blow open the position, get your king centralized, and crush. So that would have been a nice way to win this. However, black went knight e3, a mistake that white does not completely capitalize on it. Why is this a mistake? Well, it's a mistake because of rook takes e3, right? Then the knight is not pinned, so there was a little error in calculation there. But okay, instead, white goes knight d3, and we have a game again. We get a consolidation, a trade into a bishop versus knight endgame with equal pawns. And here, black is poking and prodding, right? He goes bishop to g8, attacking the pawn. We get pawn c4 defending, and g5 ripping open the position. This is exactly what you want to be doing. He centralizes his king because he's not worried about getting checkmated now. Finding a route for his bishop, very nice. And then h4. What should black do here? Well, if you want to play for a win, right, open board, you should take this. This damages their structure. It disconnects the pawns, and then at least you have an entrance. So white's going to be tied down, and if white tries to win, he'll lose. That's how you set up potential for winning in drawn endgames. You set up a position where they have to choose. Do they want to get tied down, or do they want to win? If they want to win, they will lose. So should have done that. Instead, he blockaded on the light squares, but you don't want to do that specifically with a light squared bishop. I mean, locking in general and bishop versus knight, not the greatest. We get king d2, pawn b5. Okay, I would really be trying to get your king over to where his king is. The last thing you want is your king on the side of the board where the action is not happening. You want it on the side of the board where the action is happening. So white is again winning right now. Why? The reason is he needs to take with the king. He takes with the pawn and it's a draw. However, if he did take with the king, this is winning because he is going to end up picking the a6 pawn up. If we get this is a winning pawn endgame because for white that is because your king is just too far away. So, you know, you're going to get in, he's going to get in, you're going to get in, he's going to rip it open, and you're going to lose this pawn, and he's going to make a queen. So, king takes would have been winning for white, but instead, he took with the pawn. And again, no more asymmetry, pure symmetry, same amount of material, just a draw. So we get a few more moves, king b3. All right, now he's marching his king over. And this, you don't need to be worried about because your king is in any and every box that matters. So you're big chilling. We get king a4, king c7, king b7. And I think at this point, both players did agree to a draw. Very fair because it's complete symmetry. Everything is locked up. And wow, that's a stalemate. They didn't agree to a draw. That's crazy. Did you guys notice that was a stalemate before me? That's pretty cool. All right, so we get a stalemate, and that's how the game ended in a draw. Very nice. I do know the rules of chess, I promise. But apparently not, I guess. So, did you guys enjoy this? Send in your games to the email balkangambit@gmail.com. How long was this video? My apologies. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you next time. See you tomorrow probably. Have a great day. Peace.